Good morning, everyone. So welcome once again to our YouTube channel. And here we are today to celebrate the top 10 authors. And as you already know that we are doing this as a part of the International Women's Day celebration. So both these events are clubbed together. So there will be an offline segment of the event also, which will be happening in Kolkata, in Newtown. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first recipient of the top 10 Authors Award category. And the category is Children category. And we have author Dr. Urvashi Tandon with us here today. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Such an honor.
So, ma'am, to begin with, I'll request you to introduce the readers to the books that you have written. Of course, the category is children category for which you are receiving this award. So if you can talk a little bit about the books that you have written.
Well, I have two books that are published and they belong to, yes, the children age group, but a different group or per se. The first one is a collection of 10 short stories, which has got a fair number of illustrations and is aimed for children between, say, about 5 to 10 years of age. And the book came about as a means to increase awareness about the environment we live in, make them more conscious, make them more aware. And I thought it's nice to inculcate these practices at an early age. So that's how that book came about. So there are 10 different stories of interactions in society, maybe environment per se, cruelty to animals, things like that. Those are the topics that one has discussed in a manner which the children would find easy. And the second book, Anna, a Special Child, the title itself tells you what it's about. It's about a handicapped child. This book is aimed at adolescents and adults. And it tells about, the problems and issues that a physically handicapped child, this child is mentally all right, but you have various such factors in society. And what are the issues that this child faces in interacting with, maybe other children in school and her teachers, and how we could probably be a little more sensitive to their needs, and how could we improve things for them, because children at the age group of adolescents, say about 12 to 18, are stepping into adulthood. And although they are sensitive for their own emotional needs, they may not be so sensitive about others. So how can we, but they are open to being molded, they are open to being made sensitized. So I think it's time to aim for a more inclusive society. So that was the purpose of that book.
Great. I think that's a very fair point that you had made, that whenever we talk about the emotional needs, we prioritize our own emotional needs, but we don't care that much about the emotional needs which others have. So I'm sure that these books are going to bring that change. So with that note, I'll request you, ma'am, to read some part from your first book. Then maybe you can read one of your favorite segment from the second book.
Okay.
The order is completely, the choice of order is completely.
Okay, I'll pick out excerpts from there.
Sure.
The first book was Potpourri for Short Children, for Stories for Children. That's the one.
Yes.
So I'm going to open up one of the Chota stories, and I'll probably do a quick read through. This is close to my heart, obviously, like most of them are. Okay.
Right.
So this is about a little boy called Rohan and the talking parrot. So one day, young Rohan went to a bustling marketplace with his father. And as they went about the business, they passed by a big pet shop, which Rohan found very interesting and insisted on visiting. The father was in a good mood and agreed. So the basic purpose is that although the father is not very keen on him buying what he sees in the pet shop, but since he's in a good mood, he gives in. Rohan was fascinated by a green parrot in a golden-colored cage, who the owner claimed was a talking parrot. The parrot was trained to say, "Hello, my name is Mithu, and I love you." Rohan wanted to buy the parrot immediately, but his father was not keen on it. Rohan made a big fuss and promised to look after the bird himself without troubling any other family member. Rohan's father was a kind man, and he relented after some pleading and persuasion. After all, he was now a 10-year-old. and who could face and understand responsibility. He was saying he would look after the bird, he would look after it. So the basic story is the bird and younger sister were surprised to see the unexpected arrival of a pet. Needless to say, Mithu's arrival generated a fair amount of excitement. Rohan was, of course, reminded that he was solely responsible for the well-being of his new pet. He was to perform the task of looking after his new friend sincerely. Every day before leaving for school, Rohan made sure that the bird was fed and water was always available in Mithu's cage. After the first few days went by, the cage started to smell. And Rohan realized that he would have to clean the cage of all Mithu's droppings. These were things he had not considered. This was a task he had not thought of. Still true to his word, he did the needful. Gradually, the initial excitement started to fade and the family got used to having Mithu around. After a month of Mithu's arrival, there was a spell of long holidays from school. This was when Rohan's father decided that it was time to teach Rohan a thing or two about life. He asked Rohan to spend the next 3 days with Mithu in the same room. Rohan would be provided all his meals in his room. He told Rohan that this was an experiment on bonding with his pet, and Rohan agreed. The first day passed uneventfully. By the second day, Rohan began to get restless and irritable. He could hear the family talking to each other, but could not make out what they were saying. He wanted to come out and eat with the rest of the family. He missed interacting with them and also missed playing cricket with his friends. The third day passed by with great difficulty, and Rohan pleaded with his father to cut short the experiment. As the 3 fateful days drew to a close, Rohan's father made him sit down so that they could discuss the problems faced during this experiment. He asked Rohan what the problems were, as all Rohan's needs of food and water were met in the room. Rohan admitted to his father that he felt lonely and missed the rest of the family. He missed not being able to eat with them or talk to them. He also missed not being able to go out and play with his friends. His father hugged him and asked him, "What do you think Mithu must be feeling like stuck in that cage for so many days?" This made him realize that Mithu was probably playing or looking for food when someone must have caught him to sell him. Mithu too had been separated from his friends and family. Though he had wings to fly freely, he was confined to a small cage. Mithu could hear his friends chirping outside but could not join them. Rohan understood what his father was trying to tell him and realized it was cruel to trap a bird and confine it to a cage just to hear it speak. He never thought that Mithu might be sad. He told his father that he wanted to set Mithu free. Moral of the story, after that, they go and set the bird free. So these are the kind of chota stories that are there in this. That was Rohan and the talking parrot. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Now I can.
Now can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I can hear you now.
Somehow by the default mode, I think changed. No problem. Yeah. So I was requesting you if you can just hold that the book once, the book from which you read the story. So this is the book audience potpourri from which ma'am had read the lovely story about Rohan and his friend Mithu. So I think that's a lovely message which is there for the children and also for the adults. So how the dad actually tackled and how he actually used a real life scenario to talk to teach Rohan about the message which he wanted to propagate. So thank you so much, ma'am. Now I'll request you to read some portion from the book Anna the Special Child. A wonderful topic that you had selected.
I have so many chapters in this book, which include poems and different stories, and how a little kitten gets into school in Anna's school bag and creates havoc during an exam.
Right.
Because she's running all over the school. So those are the fun parts. But there is one chapter in which I have written about how she gets bullied.
Okay.
So I would probably read a passage of that. May not be very pleasant for everyone, but these are things that happen. They happen to
Very
normal
relevant.
children also.
True.
We always have a bully in class.
Yeah.
So she's being taken. She's a new student. She's just got admission into a school, a regular school. She used to go to a school for special needs. But since she was a very bright child mentally, her parents and she both felt that she needed more to stimulate her, and they wanted to put her into a regular school. But admission in a regular school is very difficult for a special child. The staff is always worried that there may be needs and to go to the loo, this, that. So this is a boarding school, and she needs to go as a day scholar. So there's a lot of strings that have to be pulled for her to get admission. But luckily, the school has facilities like a ramp and everything, so they agree for her to be a day scholar. So now she's being taken by a friend of hers. She's got a motorized wheelchair, so that's not a problem, to the library. And she goes, enters the library where she sees a lot of these little cubicles with computers and things are well set out. It's a huge hall, for people like us, lovely, a place full of books. So, so after description of the library, I'll just read out certain portions. Anna was truly awestruck at the size of the space and the volume of literary material available. She thanked God and her father for having made the switch in schools possible as she wheeled herself around while trying to familiarize and orient herself. She reached the section devoted to English literature, and a book of poems caught her eye. As she reached out for it, she realized that it was placed a little above where her hands could reach. She bit her lip in consternation. She could not call out for help as it was a silent zone. She looked around for help, but the closest child was David, the bully. He had already sniggered at her for her inability to stand in the English class, so Anna did not feel comfortable asking him for help. She turned her wheelchair about looking for Lena, that's her friend whom she sits with in school, but she could not spot her. Tough luck. David noticed her wheeling about and smiled wickedly. He sauntered up to her with his hands in his pockets, leaned forward, and asked her what the problem was in a whisper. She hesitated. Should she confide in him? The good hearted girl that she was, she saw no harm in pointing out the book to him as she whispered back, I would like to see that book. Could you please help me? David was beside himself with excitement. He reached out for the book, picked it out, showed it to Anna, and placed it on a higher shelf. He looked down at her and winked before pointedly walking away from her. Poor Anna lowered her head with grief. She felt humiliated and ashamed. David, on the other hand, strode across the hall and watched her out through the corner of his eye. Her sad and tearful face made him feel like he had achieved what he had set out to do. But deep down inside, there was a funny emotion that was strange to him, and he could not understand it. I mean, none of the kids are bad by heart. He just shrugged it off and continued to flip through a book on science rather disinterestedly. He was more interested in knowing what Anna's next course of action would be. Meanwhile, Anna pulled herself together, wiped away her tears, and made a mental note of the book and rack before she wheeled herself to the librarian's desk to make a request for help. So it was just one occasion where, this also happens. So if this child comes around, they become very good friends, David and Anna, later, because David is miserable in studies. He's only interested in what we call mastikhori. So, so they come around, and then how she makes friends with someone, when they practice music through an orchestra. There's a girl who has always been the apple of the teacher's eye, always being, made to sing in the lead, and Anna is now a better singer. So there's jealousy that girl faces, and how she's trying to prove that Anna should not be in the front. After all, she's on a wheelchair and things like that. So little bits like that. So little incidents. So how she meets, how people insensitive keep asking her, how did you get, why are you in a wheelchair? What was wrong? What happened? So I'll just put out something of Daisy. Um, Miss Patricia is the music teacher. Miss Patricia asked Anna to sing a few lines of any song she wanted to, as she needed to check if it could hold her notes. Anna bowed her head, shut her eyes, and began to sing her father's favorite song by John Denver, Country Roads. The class was silent as Anna's sweet, lilting voice filled the classroom, and the voice wafted out into the corridors. Sister Agnes was passing by and stopped to peep in. Her voice was sheer magic that decided it. So Anna has decided to be the lead singer. Unnoticed by the rest of the class, this decision had not gone down well with Daisy, as she was a self proclaimed star. How could Miss Patricia choose Anna, who could not even stand for the performance on stage? So then the resentment comes out by Daisy flinging her maracas, breaking her instrument, and still Anna gets her to come and sing with her, pleads with the teacher, and again, kind of shows Anna as the big heroine. But these are the little things that can happen to children. There's jealousy, there's bullying, there is inadequacy in some form, pulling down, and it's how we can make things a little easier for them. So that was a couple of little bits from that book. So this was the second one.
Yes, I
Of
think,
course, we are doing a re-edited version now
yeah, we have
with
a
a new
great
cover.
version as well. But yes, the title remains the same, and the core
Yes,
topic also remains the same. So I think
remains.
that's great. The two incidents, the two parts that you read actually from the book talk about the emotional rights actually, which are relatable being adults as well. I think we knowingly or unknowingly go through all these emotions. So I think that's a great read for not just for the children, even though you are getting this award for the children category. I think there is always a child inside every adult. So that way, the parents should also give it a read. I'll humbly and sincerely request all our Literoma family members to go through the books. And definitely congratulations on winning the award, ma'am. And
Thank you.
before we part away, any particular message that you want to give to the parents? I know that you always emphasize on the point that these books are not just meant for the children. These are to be read by the adults also. On that note,
You know,
message.
in today's times, we have all parents want their children to do very well, perform very well, get the best grades possible, do very well in life. And we kind of instill competition in them, which is healthy to a certain extent. But we lose our, core values. We also want them to be good human beings. So every child has an aptitude for something. I'm not saying that they should not be trying to perform well, but they shouldn't be running down each other, because you look at a small child, the child is innocent. The child loves his friend as much as he loves himself, probably, or his sibling, and wants to share, wants to give. But we teach them to compete. We teach them that so and so got better marks than you. Why have you not? You have taught you so much, you studied so much. Why have your grades not been as good, if not better? Why are you below? And in that process, somewhere we change the thinking of children into always wanting for themselves, and anybody else does not matter. It may even trickle down into the family. So, somewhere down the line, we need to draw a line somewhere and look at the broader picture. We do want them to have good values also, which both somehow don't always go together. Competition is good, but competition should be healthy. So that people should focus on. And please encourage children to read. That habit is going. Everyone's getting into gadgets.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that message about that trade-off is also very relevant, that how to balance that trade-off. So that will be a lifelong problem to solve, and they have to just learn that. So thank you so
Yeah.
much, ma'am, and congratulations once again on winning this award. We'll look forward to have you in our next program as well. Your blessing and your presence always matters to us. Uh,
Thank you, Tamal. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Literoma.